Hi everyone, this is an information session about intensive interaction. So if we have a look at the first slide, we can see this is a presentation about intensive interaction. And this is a really useful quote to start off thinking about intensive interaction. And it is, intensive interaction involves the adult and a child who has complex learning and communication difficulties interacting through frequent, natural, fun-filled exchanges that promote basic communication. So just to kind of look at that bit first, just the definition of intensive interaction is a frequent, natural, fun-filled exchange between, in our case, an adult and a child when the child has complex learning and communication difficulties. And now the idea of these interactions is that there should be no task or outcome focus. You know, the focus isn't to kind of finish reading the book or build the tower or build the train track. The focus is on the quality of the interaction itself. So this is a really, really nice quote to kind of start off with, and also just keep coming back to when you're kind of learning about intensive interaction. So, in intensive interaction, we look at really, really early foundational communication skills. Now, a good way of describing these really early skills is through this infographic here. So, as speech and language therapists, we generally get referrals for children around the age of 2, 2.5, when they're not talking yet. Because generally, people think of communication as talking when a child starts to use their words. So, we get referrals from parents, from nursery staff, from health visitors who kind of notice, like, oh, well, they're not talking, so there must be something we need to do about their communication, refer them to speech and language therapy. However, the idea of this infographic is just to explain that there's lots of steps before the talking starts, basically. There's lots and lots of really important steps a child goes through to develop their communication before they start to talk. So the first step here is, and these are kind of fairly approximate age equivalents here, so don't worry too much about these, but generally from a newborn up to about 5 months, a child has what we call pre-intentional communication. So all their communication is pre-intentional. In other words, they didn't mean to do it. They didn't intend to communicate with someone. So I'll give you an example. You might have a kind of newborn baby that when it's hungry will start to cry, and then its primary caregiver will hear it cry, respond to that behavior. So the baby is just responding automatically to a sort of a kind of feeling inside its body of feeling hungry, and the primary caregiver will attach a meaning to that behavior. So we'll go to the baby, pick it up, say, oh no, let's see, are you hungry? Are you tired? Do you need your nappy changing? So the baby has communicated without actually meaning to. The baby just did something involuntary, so started crying because it was upset, and it's the primary caregiver who interprets that behavior. And then as this feedback loop, so if we have a little look at the feedback loop, so here's a feedback loop of sort of greeting. So mum enters a room, a baby sees mum or maybe smells mum, has a memory of, oh, I know this is my mom, I know this is a pleasant thing, and might react involuntary and might vocalize or smile or might start to move around. And in reaction, mom gives an even bigger smile and maybe a hello and picks the baby up. And this is a feedback that keeps going round and round and round. It's something that we just naturally do with newborn children. It's kind of inbuilt in us to do it. So as this feedback loop continues, the child's communication skills develop along these steps. So they start to anticipate that this might happen. They're not quite sure yet how to control. So they aren't quite aware yet of, oh, I will do this to make something happen. But they're starting to realize, oh, actually, I think my mum is going to pick me up. And I think, when someone takes the lid off the bubbles, they're going to blow the bubbles. But they're not quite able to communicate intentionally yet. And then around the age of 8 to 12 months, the biggest leap in communication happens when a child starts to develop intentional communication. So that child starts to realize, oh, when I kind of get excited and raise my arms towards my parents, they pick me up. If I do this, it means I get picked up. Or if I cry, it means my kind of nappy will get changed, or I'll be picked up and comforted, or if I laugh, someone will look at me and interact with me. And that's also a point when children maybe start to point. So they might kind of point with their fingers or point with their eyes and look back to someone to say, it's that thing over there, that's the thing that I want. So we've got a point here, 8 to 12 months, when a child has had that feedback loop of their parents constantly responding to their behaviours and interpreting them and giving them a meaning, that the child starts to realise my behaviour can make things happen. I can point to things, I can vocalise and get people's attention. And if you notice, this intentional communication starts even before the child starts to be able to speak. And this is generally this stage of this intentional communication is the point at which then the child is able to use different words and ideas, and then their language development kind of flows from there, basically. But a child realizing that they can communicate intentionally is probably the biggest leap in communication development that we go through as humans. It's the most important thing that we learn, and it means that the rest of our communication skills can build on top of that. So if we go over this again, we've got this feedback loop of a baby responding to something internal or external, and it just responds involuntarily. It's just an impulsive behavior, and their caregiver will react to it and give it a meaning, and that feedback loop will go round and round again. And here we go, we've got a baby who's reached that intentional step. So their mum enters the room, they see their mum, they remember, and this time they think, I want to be picked up and I know how to get picked up. So I'm going to, it says kind of kicks, vocalizes and kicks and lifts its arms and chest and indicates, can you pick me up? And again, mum might then label some words and say up, and the baby starts to associate the word up, which is why at this stage more words start to develop. What does this have to do with intensive interaction? So intensive interaction develops what we call the fundamentals of communication, which are these early communication skills. These skills that happen before intentional communication starts to happen. So we, in intensive interaction, we generally work with children who have not got to that developmental stage yet, or who are struggling with that developmental stage of intentional communication. And this is often due to things like a delay in their development. It might be to do with having differences in their social skills and interaction and things like that. So intensive interaction works on the fundamentals of the communication, which are all these communication skills that lead up to having intentional communication. So it says early communication skills, and the idea is to improve a child's happiness and well-being, their bonding and attachment, and to support them naturally to then move on to those further foundation skills. Sorry, those further social skills, and giving them the foundational skills to do that. So we are going to have a look at a video. So far this might sound a little bit complicated, but I guarantee that everyone at some point will have used intensive interaction at some point with one of those pre-intentional children. So I've got a really useful video here. Just going to get rid of the advert, excuse me. And this is of a parent, a primary caregiver, interacting with a baby who is 3 months old. And as we watch this video, we can go through and think about the kind of skills that mum is using and the kind of interaction, that feedback loop that's developing between these children. There we go. Okay.
Tell me about it. Really? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Are you feeling better? Oh. Are you feeling better? You feel pretty good? Huh? You feel pretty good? Yeah. Oh. You were pretty mad before. And now you're like so happy. Huh? Were you hungry? Yeah. What else? What else? Did you have a good day? Huh? Did you have a good day? Oh. Oh. Tell me more. Tell me more. Oh. What else? anybody else? Did you swing in the swing? Did you swing in the swing? Really?
Daddy.
Did you get dizzy? Is it kind of dizzy? Yeah, like that? Oh, are you pushing on me? You want to swing and bouncy? Oh, did you go in the bouncy seat? Did you go in the bouncy seat?
There we go. I'll just end that before the older sibling interrupts. Yeah, if we have a look at this slide of what we need to do intensive interaction, and we can see that mum was using all of those skills. So she was really, really tuned in to her little baby. She's going really slowly, and she was allowing the baby to lead. She wasn't bombarding him with questions, trying to make him do things. She was waiting for him to do something that she would respond to. So he did lots of really sweet kind of noises that he didn't know that they sounded as if he was talking. He was just kind of making noises that he enjoyed. But Mom then responded to those noises by saying, "Oh, really?" and kind of matching his intonation. She used really simple and uncomplicated behaviour. She was just reacting to the things that he did. She remembered she was pausing and waiting, so she was leaving pauses, waiting for the baby to do something. And also, it was really good fun. It was clearly a really enjoyable exchange for both of them. So that's an example of that feedback loop that a primary caregiver will engage with naturally with their young baby who has that pre-intentional communication. That baby is not yet communicating intentionally. And I'm sure we've all been there when we've kind of held a baby, we've used that feedback loop, and basically that is intentional. That is intensive interaction. So I've got another really nice video to show you, which has another example of a parent. Sorry, I'll just play this advert through. There we go. And so this is another example of a really lovely intensive interaction style of play between this caregiver and a baby. So have just a little watch of this, and we'll think about the skills that this dad used, which are the kind of skills of intensive interaction.
Did you understand it though? No. Okay. All right. Huh? Oh no, not this one. This is the grand finale of it. Yeah, that's the last one. That's what I was wondering. I don't know what they're gonna do next season because they did some stuff this time. Exactly what I was thinking. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. Don't bring that again. You know what I'm saying? Don't do the same stuff. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I was thinking that. Yeah. Yeah. Like go somewhere else with that, but don't bring it here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's what I said. And then it was like, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, what in the world? But don't do that here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. 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 Really? I thought the same thing. We think a lot alike, huh? Oh, that's crazy.
So there we go. There's another really, really lovely video of that parent-child interaction and that feedback loop. So that was obviously a slightly older child who was using a few intentional communication things like the pointing, but the child clearly wasn't really having a proper conversation yet. They're still still very, very young in their communication development, and that dad was following all of the things that we recommend for intensive interaction or for what we do when we want to encourage that feedback loop. And if we look again at our quote from the beginning, there we go. So the second part of this quote is the idea is the exchange should have no task or outcome focus. The primary concern is the quality of the interaction itself. So I'm sure you'll agree in that conversation. There wasn't much actual content going on. It was just a pretend conversation. They weren't really talking about a thing. But in that case, the dad wasn't trying to actually explain something to his son or try and have a conversation. The point was just to enjoy the interaction and have a good quality interaction together. So the dad was tuning in. So I think you'll notice if you watch it again, the dad was kind of watching out of the corner of his eye to see what's he going to do next, what can I react to next. He was going really slowly and allowing the little boy to lead. So he was leaving pauses. Then the little boy would vocalize or move his arms or point to something, and then dad would respond. And again, he was kind of attaching meaning to the things that little boy was doing. He was using simple and uncomplicated behavior. He was pausing and waiting, as we said, and most of all, he was having fun. A really big part of intensive interaction is supporting children who are maybe struggling in some ways with their communication or to enjoy interaction with another person. A big part of it is that we are engaging in a fun way, and we're showing that ultimately communication is a primarily enjoyable thing. It's what makes us human and makes us have interactions with each other, and it's good for our mental health and our bonding. So we've watched 2 videos there of children who are likely not to have any kind of delay with their communication or their development. And it's worth thinking about the fact that intensive interaction, when we use it with a child who has got a delay with their communication development, intensive interaction might look quite different. So there's some really good videos by the Intensive Interaction Institute, and they often have quite nice little series of videos that follow one particular child and their development. So I'm going to show you 3 videos that involve a little boy called Sasha and his teacher Rihanna, and there will be Intensive Interaction Institute practitioners kind of describing the video as we go along. And I would like to play just a little bit of all 3 videos so we can see the brilliant skills that Rihanna has as an intensive interaction practitioner, but also we can see the difference in Sasha as the sessions go on. So obviously Sasha is an older child. He looks to me maybe like he's kind of 4 or 5, and the main point of formalizing intensive interaction is to explain that the kind of lovely feedback loop, the play, the responsive kind of interaction that we do, like we saw in those 2 videos, that we naturally do with younger children. When older children have a delay in their communication, that's the level we need to go in with, because these are the foundation skills we need to support them to have, and then we can continue to support them with the rest of their communication skills. So basically it's doing what we've seen in the 2 videos so far, but we kind of formalize it and we give it a name, intensive interaction, and there's ways that we need to kind of practice using it with kind of older children who might have a different set of needs. So let's watch part of this first video with Sasha.
Hello, this is Dave Hewitt, and here you can see Sasha with his teacher Rihanna. They're having an intensive interaction activity that looks pretty enjoyable. And you can also pick up quickly, I think, that intensive interaction activities are like this. They're sort of free-flowing and relaxed. They can, of course, be highly dynamic, very active and playful, but this one is pretty gentle. And at this stage for Sasha, the main priority from Rihanna's point of view is simply to have an activity where Sasha engages successfully and effectively with another person. Then over time with intensive interaction, the idea is that through frequent repetition and practice of these kinds of engagements, Sasha gradually learns the complicated things like using sustained eye contact, learning to read and use facial expressions, take turns in exchanges of behaviour. And Rihanna, her style.
Hello.
She's relaxed, isn't she? She's stress-free and unhurried. She develops the activity by picking up on what Sasha does. She's responsive rather than directive and does a lot of waiting and watching. She uses lots of joining in and imitating when she responds. This makes the activity understandable to Sasha.
Lovely. So that's the first part. Yeah. So that's the first part of this video series of Sasha. And as the person commentating said, Brianna was really good at tuning in to Sasha. So she was tuning in, she was going really slowly. There were parts where she had to wait for a really long time. So in terms of pausing and waiting, when Sasha was kind of, he was kind of looking away, zoning out a little bit, and then coming back to the interaction. She didn't try and like call his name, like, come on, ask him questions, get him back again. She was happy just to pause and wait while he looked away. Then as soon as he looked back again, she was ready there to react to him, say hello, to make it really clear, like, you're looking at me and we're having an interaction, which was really lovely. So yes, she's going really slowly. And if we look at some of the skills in those fundamentals of communication, so these are those really early communication skills that we are looking at with children who we're using intensive interaction with. And it's important to know this isn't necessarily a tick list. We don't set kind of targets or try and push children to do these things in intensive interaction. We just do intensive interaction and we provide the child with the space to feel safe and give them the skills to develop these skills if they want to. So we do the intensive interaction and the child that we're working with shows us which of these skills are kind of within their toolkit, basically. So we can see already that Sasha enjoys being with another person. You do get some children who really struggle to be with another person, that it's something they find kind of uncomfortable, they prefer to be off on their own. But Sasha is clearly someone who enjoys being with another person. He was, so in terms of attending, we just mean basically, do they kind of notice and do they attend, or do they give their attention to another person? And Sasha's attention was kind of in and out, really, wasn't it? He was kind of looking away, then looking back to Rihanna. And his concentration, again, was fairly sporadic. There weren't really any sequences of activities. There weren't any back and forths, really, or taking turns in exchanges of behaviour. Sasha didn't mind sharing personal space. He was happy to kind of lie next to Rihanna. And there was some very fleeting kind of eye contacts when maybe he would sort of look at her face, a few smiles, but not really any non-verbal communication, and definitely no vocalizations at this point. So let's have a look at the next video of Sasha. Apologies, I'll just wait for this advert to go through. I promise I'm not sponsored by any of these people. Okay, so have a look and see if there's any differences in Sasha in this video.
So, here are Rihanna and Sasha again. A different type of intensive interaction activity. This one involves one of Sasha's favourite toys.
Hi. Hello.
It is an interesting, interactive toy. But for Rihanna, the activity is not about teaching Sasha how to use the toy. Rather, she uses the toy as a focus or stimulus for their social interaction.
Hello.
Once again, she proceeds slowly with their play. She doesn't force the pace. She does a lot of waiting, giving Sasha time to think,
Hello.
to process, time to initiate. Then she responds, copies, joins in with his initiations. And this creates moments in the flow of their play, where they exchange eye contacts, sounds and vocalizations, and become connected in mutual communication.
Okay, so we'll pause this one here. As part of this training package, I'll also send out that playlist as well, which is really useful to look through and have a look in more detail. So we can see there that initially Sasha is very kind of absorbed in his favourite toy, but we do start to see some more elements of these fundamentals of communication. So Rihanna has obviously been using intensive interaction with him very, very frequently over the weeks and months. And we can see again that Sasha is someone who enjoys being another person. And this time he is starting to attend or give his attention to Rihanna a little bit more, and his concentration and attention span are increasing. He would look at her a little bit more frequently. And in terms of sequences of activity, we are starting to see some glimmers there. There were points when Sasha was kind of clicking his tongue and Rihanna would do it back, and Sasha almost seemed kind of surprised to see that someone else was copying him, and then would click his tongue and kind of really smiled as she joined in with him. And again, when he was shaking his head, Rihanna would shake her head. So initially it starts off that that Sasha is doing this in an unintentional way. He's not meaning to communicate and get Rihanna to copy him. So he shakes his head. Then he notices that Rihanna has joined in, and he tries it again. He watches again to see that she's joined in with him again. And when she's doing that, we can really see a change in Sasha, that he's really kind of looking over and he wants to kind of stroke her face and really kind of attend to her. So it's that feedback loop which is supporting Sasha to kind of develop these skills. So again, we can see that he's someone who doesn't mind sharing personal space. We're seeing a little bit more eye contact, a little bit more looking. We saw some more smiles. He's initiating some really gentle physical contacts, but we're not quite yet at the stage where he might be communicating intentionally, maybe non-verbally, pointing at center or vocalizing with meaning. So let's have a quick look at the third video of Sasha.
So, hello again, Sasha and Rihanna, video 3, and I think we can see straight away that over a period of a few months, Sasha's really making progress. We can see how much more participative he is in the activity, how much more confident he is, how much more detailed knowledge he's got about how to take part in this lovely activity. And I think at times we can see him knowing that he's in the lead and taking Rihanna along with him through the processes of the activity. And then surely radiantly we can also see one of the main lovely things about doing intensive interaction and being an intensive interaction practitioner, if you like. And for me, it was one of the best times in all of my working life as a teacher when I realised gradually, as we were developing intensive interaction, that you could be doing the most serious, the most special and critical teaching for the learner, but it could be huge fun. And I think Rihanna, like me, she shares the view, teaching and learning should be like that. And we can see Rihanna once again clearly demonstrating main style with intensive interaction. She doesn't do too much. She's holding back. She's letting Sasha be in the lead. She's constantly watching him. She's tuned into him to pick up on his behaviour, and she constructs the content and the flow by responding to Sasha. The main response that you see is a kind of imitation, copying, joining in, and that makes her behaviour really meaningful for Sasha. He can recognise it, he understands it, it's meaningful and enjoyable for him. And then of course you can also see Rihanna's preparedness to pause when Sasha goes into a lull, needs a little bit of a rest, removes attention. And of course, as I've said, her preparedness to absolutely have her own fun and transmit that enormous enjoyment to Sasha. Communication is wonderful and enjoyable, and learning to be a communicator is and should be wonderful and enjoyable.
Okay, so again, that was a really kind of interesting video to see how far Sasha has come in his intensive interaction journey. So you can see that he's really, really progressed, and I really like the commentary on that one, the real emphasis on the fact that this should be enjoyable and fun. This is what we're teaching someone, we're supporting someone to become a communicator, and that first and foremost, communication isn't to kind of pass an exam, it isn't to kind of meet certain targets, it's because it is so enjoyable to have an interaction with another person and a bond with another person. That is the primary reason why we want to support communication. That's why it's so important. So again, if we look at the fundamentals of communication, these really early communication skills that we hope to support a child to develop through giving them intensive interaction. So we can see again that Sasha enjoyed being with another person, and this time he seemed to really, really enjoy it. He was smiling even more, and he was attending to Rihanna almost all the way through. Right from the beginning, you could see he rolled over and he was looking at her like, oh, something fun is going to happen. I'm going to do something and she's going to respond to me and I'm going to really, really enjoy it. So his concentration and attention span had really increased. And in terms of doing sequences back and forth, that was almost all the way through. He was really enjoying tapping the floor and looking immediately at her to see if she would join in with the waving. They were even doing sort of little anticipation, kind of running and chasing, little mini running and chasing games. So there were lots and lots of those sequences and exchanges of behaviour. And if you notice again, if you watch the video again, you'll notice that it's never Rihanna kind of tapping the floor, kind of trying to make Sasha do it. It's always Rihanna waiting, watching, and Sasha initiating. Sasha showing like, in this session, I want to tap the floor. Now I want to wave. Now I want to run and look and see if you'll chase me. It's always Sasha who is showing Rihanna, this is the activity that I want to do. It's never Rihanna trying to lead or drive something to happen. Again, Sasha clearly is someone who's happy to share personal space. He was using loads and loads of eye contact, lots of looking towards Rihanna. And eye contact, for certain people who have differences in their interaction, eye contact can sometimes be a lifelong difficulty. It can be something that's really, really tricky to do. So it's never ever something that we want to force children to do. But it's on this list because it's something that a child might show us that they're able to do when we use intensive interaction with them. And for Sasha, it was clearly something that he really enjoyed. So lots of looking at Rihanna, loads of facial expressions, loads of laughing and smiling. There was also some physical contact. So kind of when he put his hand up, he really enjoyed Rihanna joining in and holding his hand. And yeah, an increase in kind of non-verbal communication. So he was doing some kind of running away and looking to kind of show like, oh, I'm excited, I want you to chase me. So that's a really, really lovely series of videos. And like I said, the Intensive Interaction Institute have some really, really nice mini series like that when you can see one particular child and how they develop their fundamentals of communication. And it's worth thinking about when you initially look at it, you might think, well, this isn't speech and language therapy. This is just sort of playing about on the floor. I want them to kind of sit and learn. I want them to talk. But the problem is if we try and teach children kind of words, we want them to we teach them to request, we might trying to get them to use communication, but without helping them to develop these foundation skills that lead up to that intentional communication point. The only communication they will develop is likely to be very unfunctional, and we're likely to have children who still really, really struggle to communicate functionally. They may learn their numbers, they might learn their letters and colours, might be able to list things, repeat things, memorise things, yet in terms of meaningful interactions with other people and also communication to get their needs met is often very, very difficult to achieve unless you've worked on these fundamentals of communication through intensive interaction. It's one of the most important foundation parts of what we do as speech and language therapists. I will send the playlist out that I've made, the kind of YouTube playlist, because there's also another video which is quite nice of an older child called Sebastian, which is here, which I won't play through, but that's a really lovely example of an older child who's a little bit more physically able, and his teacher who works with him shows some really, really good intensive interaction skills, lots of watching and waiting, allowing him to kind of zone out when he needs a bit of a rest, and then when he comes back again, she's ready to join in with him. So some really, really lovely examples there. And there's another example here. Oh, apologies. Yes, this is a speech and language therapist. There you go. And this is her video. And she has just a really nice overview description of intensive interaction. So these are nice videos to kind of go through in your own time to learn a little bit more about intensive interaction. Okay, so thank you very much for listening. Any questions or concerns can be directed to your speech and language therapist. So thank you and enjoy your journey with intensive interaction. Thank you. Bye.